Hi, and thank you for joining this Tweed Shire Council cane toad webinar. You can watch on demand as many times as you'd like to learn everything you need to know about cane toad control in your own property and your local area. This webinar has been kindly funded by Tweed Shire Council, and it's being delivered by me. My name is Emily Strayton, and I'm the Invasive Species Manager at Watergun. So first, a little bit about Watergun, in case you don't know who we are. We are a not-for-profit environmental community group based on the Gold Coast. We do lots of different types of projects, citizen science and animal monitoring, such as turtles, platypus. We do lots of conservation works, water monitoring. We have a drone department. And then another very large aspect of our organisation is cane toad control. So that might be what you know us for, and that's why I'm delivering this presentation today. So the purpose of this presentation is to enable you to feel completely equipped to control and prevent cane toads on your properties and in your area, and also to teach you how you can contribute to data collection. So data collection is super important for invasive species control. We really need to show what we're achieving and what we're achieving together as a community. So first, I'll start with just some information about cane toads. So cane toads first came to Australia in 1935. A mere 102 arrived on our shores and were put into a breeding facility. Once they reached about 2,000 or 3,000, that's when they were released out into the area to try and control the cane beetle. So they were brought from South and Central America, and it was believed that they would help local farmers control the cane beetle, which was decimating crops. But unfortunately, they were really, really poor at this. The main reasons are cane beetles fly very high in the sugarcane, and cane toads are down on the ground, so they couldn't catch the adult beetles. Also, another aspect they hadn't really considered was the larval stage of the cane beetle. It occurs at the same time when the cane is chopped down. So this is when the fields are really exposed, and the cane toads were smart enough not to go out into these open, potentially dangerous areas. So in controlling the cane beetle, they were just really, really poor at this. And instead, they just spread around Australia, causing havoc. So their lifespan, approximately 5 to 15 years. 15 years in captivity, and their breeding season, it does depend on where you are in Australia, but they like that warm, humid temperature. So where we're based down southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, we tend to start seeing them a little bit later than September, maybe around October, November is when we really start to see cane toads appear more. But up north, you would certainly see them as early as September. So this is the cane beetle that they were brought to try and control. And we have lots of beetles that are very similar in Australia and do form part of a cane toad's diet. But really, they will literally eat anything that they can get their mouths on. They have a great appetite. Another thing about cane toads, which I'm sure you're all aware, is that they are toxic. So the toxin is mainly present in these as a secretion in the parotoid gland, which is on the side of their neck. And this is a really good identifying feature of cane toads. So every cane toad will have these large glands. They're really quite visible on every cane toad that you see. Even on the teeny tiny little metamorphs, you can see the glands starting to form. And it's this, when they're stressed and they feel like they're in danger, that's when they will excrete this toxin to poison their predator. So this is all adult life stages are toxic, and this is just some evidence of that. So these are outputs, lab outputs to show the chemicals found in the secretion when testing. You can see all those spikes those spikes are the presence of the bufotoxin. So you can see the eggs are quite toxic, and this is because the females, before they lay the eggs, they coat them in their own toxin, and this protects the eggs until they are ready to hatch, which is a 3-day period. So anything that eats these eggs is definitely in danger of succumbing to that toxin. Also, if you are removing eggs, you definitely want to wear gloves because you will be touching that toxin. Tadpoles, probably the least toxic stage, and that's just because they've shed that toxin from the parent, and now they're just generating their own toxin. So, but however, they are still toxic. If you do get tadpoles in the ponds, and cane toads, tadpoles frog tadpoles nibble at them, or fish eat them, you're definitely going to end up with some dead fish. And then you'll see the adults, those toxin levels seem to be a lot higher. So the older a cane toad gets, the bigger a cane toad gets, the more toxic it becomes. And then very important to mention that dead cane toads are still toxic. So there seems to be a lot of idea that you can, when controlling cane toads, you can run them over and leave the bodies in the street, or you can spray them with chemicals and just leave them in the environment. But this does not help your environment, because those bodies stay there and they still present quite high levels of toxin, as you can see on this diagram here. This was a 3-week-old cane toad where this test was done. So if you have dead cane toads at the side of the road that have been hit by cars, and a dog comes along and licks those cane toads, they're still going to be in danger, and you should take that dog to a vet. So I mentioned previously the huge appetite that cane toads have, and this is another reason why they've been so successful in monopolizing habitat in Australia. So cane toads can eat hundreds of insects a night. Studies were done on some cane toads out in farming in rural areas, and when their bellies were cut open, they found in excess of 200 beetles in their stomachs. So they will eat to excess, and they will take all those food resources. And if you think about it, you've got hundreds of cane toads in an environment eating 200 beetles a night. That's thousands and thousands of insects that are not being made available for our native species. So cane toads can really impact a local area just by taking all the food resources, and that can mean that our native species cannot thrive. The third thing about cane toads, which makes them so prevalent and successful about spreading around Australia, is their incredible breeding capacity. So a female cane toad can have up to 35,000 eggs per clutch, and she can have 2 clutches per year. So that's 70,000 eggs just from one female cane toad. So each breeding event is a significant spread of cane toads, and so our aim really is to try and prevent those breeding events from even happening. And if you do see eggs, this is the easiest stage to control cane toads. You need to get them out of the water as soon as you can. So cane toads have really impacted Australia. The main ways that they impact Australia that are known are native species. As I've talked about, they take over habitat and they poison native species. They impact our pets. So that's something that's really close to home for lots of community members, is keeping their dogs safe. And dogs seem to have an attraction to cane toads. They want to mouth them, they want to lick them, they want to play with them. So this can be particularly worrying. A bit lesser known is the impact of farming. So cane toads really impact farming in a number of ways. Their tadpoles and eggs block irrigation systems, which causes big problems for cattle and farmers trying to keep their cattle hydrated. They also they eat lots of dung beetles, which can really impact the health of the cattle as well, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second. But first of all, we'll talk about native species. So there's lots of native species that are heavily impacted. One that's really triggers people to try and get involved is their snakes. Lots of people enjoy their carpet pythons, you know, their rodent control, but particularly carpet pythons, they're constrictors. So they will wrap around the cane toad. The cane toad gets stressed. It excretes its poison, and it goes straight through the scales of the snake, and it will kill the snake. But it's not just snakes. There's lots of other animals that are impacted. Quolls have been particularly impacted heavily by cane toads. It's marked as one of the reasons for their decline when they were trying to predate cane toads. This study has shown that you see the red line there, which is the introduction of cane toads, the prevalence of in this particular area, and the occurrence of quolls in this study dramatically reduced, so really, really important that we try and rectify this. We do not want to lose our northern quolls. Crocodiles especially play victim as well, freshwater crocodiles. There has been some studies done on the deaths of crocodiles and whether they're related to cane toads, and they have found that lots of dead crocodiles had cane toads in their stomachs. And they have found a correlation in drier, more arid areas where crocodiles and cane toads are coming into contact more often because there's not as many water holes. So they are put together more often, and therefore the cane toads are predated more often, and this is impacting crocodiles. Another one that might be a little bit lesser known is nest predation, and the rainbow honeyeater is particularly vulnerable to this. They nest on the ground, as do some other species, but we'll focus on the rainbow honeyeater. But the cane toads have learnt this. They find the nest holes, and they'll go in and they'll eat the baby chicks, and they'll wait by these nest holes and wait for the parents to go away, wait for the chicks to be the right age. They're quite clever. We've got to give them a bit of credit, but really a devastating impact of cane toads. So talking a bit more about dogs and how they impact dogs, some things that you want to look out for if you suspect that your dog has come into contact with a cane toad are vomiting, dilated pupils, increased heart rate. That's an impact of the bufotoxin, leading to seizures and high body temperature. If you do suspect that your dog has mouthed a cane toad, they will have the toxin in their mouth attached to their gums. So you want to take a cold flannel and wipe their gums. Try and wipe it off. Keep cleaning your flannel, wipe it off, and get your dog to a vet as soon as you can. So I talked a little bit about the dung beetles. Dung beetles are really, really important in rural Australia. They help keep parasites down. They keep fields clear, and help the grass to regenerate. Cane toads, super clever. They have learned that dung beetles come to dung, so they will sit on piles of dung and wait for the food to come to them. This photo was taken out in Ilambah when we were doing some cane toad control work a few years ago, and we would literally walk around this field in the dark, and you would see piles of cane toads just sat on every dung piece, and we actually didn't see any dung beetles there. But they cause big problems. This reduces the health of the cattle, it increases parasites, and is a big problem for farmers. You might also not know about the impact on honeybees. So cane toads have learned that honeybees are an easy prey, and they will sit outside hives on a night, and they are able to jump that high and take off those guard bees, as you can see in the picture. And this can weaken the hive, and is causing big problems for honey producers. So if you do have a hive, I have a hive on my property, and when I'm toad busting, I always go to the hive and find a stack of cane toads in front of it, trying to pick off easy prey. So what we are trying to do when we are reducing cane toad numbers is we are trying to create safe havens for our wildlife, because miraculously, wildlife is adapting. Wildlife is learning what to do, and ultimately they are going to be the real heroes of cane toad control in the future, not us. But we just need to stop the problem getting so crazy out of control that our wildlife is hopeless. But I want to tell you about some of our amazing animals that are learning how to control cane toads themselves. So first of all, we'll cover the Teresian crow. So they have a method of eating cane toads where they pull out the tongue of the cane toad and they eat the tongue. This also results, so they put their beak down the throat and pull out the tongue. And this also results in them pulling out the stomach. And the stomach is full of beetles and everything the cane toad ate the night before. So they're also eating that contents as well. And this kills the cane toad in the process. There's some other animals that have also learned this behavior. And we got this wonderful video from Martin Bennett, which shows, sorry, it's a bit of a grainy copy, but it does show a purple swamp hen, an Australian swamp hen, purple swamp hen, common name, using the same method. So if you watch carefully, you can see that it pulls the cane toad out of the water there. It's working out how to pick it up, but once it does pick it up, it goes down the mouth of the cane toad and is pulling out the cane toad's tongue. So they're exhibiting that same behavior. That same behavior has been learned, and we're seeing that behavior in a number of species. Kookaburras also exhibit that behavior. So the ricali, this one was actually discovered decades ago, and quite interesting. This was one of the first ones that we became aware of, and it was discovered when someone happened across a creek one morning, and there were cane toads just laid out in lines, carefully dissected, like the one you see in the image, with their organs removed, and also their legs skinned and the muscles removed. And it was done with such precision. At first, they thought there was something nefarious going on, but when they investigated further, they found out it was the ricali. They had learned what to do, and they, with surgical precision, would remove those organs and safely eat those organs. So they're a cane toad warrior as well. My personal favorite, though, is the Australian white ibis. I think they're the true heroes of cane toad control because I think their method of eating them is just so clever. What ibis have figured out is they've figured out that if they fling the cane toad around and get it really stressed out, they've worked out that the cane toad starts to excrete its toxin, effectively emptying its parotoid glands. Once these glands are empty, the ibis take the cane toad down to the water and they just wash the cane toad. They wash all the toxin off and then they swallow the cane toad whole. So just amazing behavior. I can't work out how they learned it. Initially, we had, one or two rare stories of this, and now we're seeing it everywhere. So keep your eyes out for ibis and just appreciate what clever birds they are. Not only have they adapted to cities and worked out how to live among us almost better than any other bird, but they are eating and they are consuming cane toads and reducing their numbers. So lots of people wonder if this is enough. Unfortunately, people are still seeing a reduction in wildlife. They're getting very upset by what they're seeing and just keeping hearing those stories. They're keeping hearing about cane toads spreading and them being everywhere. So is it enough? Is cane toad control enough? And is the animals learning what to do enough? Well, short answer, as I explained, it really is. And these things don't happen overnight. So what you've got to do is just as much as you can. If humans create those safe spaces for wildlife, then that gives our native animals space to learn what to do. So you can drastically reduce your cane toad population in your garden in just a few busts, depending on the size of it. And you will see the impacts. You will see native frogs return and insect species flourish, and you'll see the results. So please join in the Tweed Cane Toad Challenge. Start collecting cane toads from the Tweed, start contributing to this work and helping your local environment. It really is worth doing. Now, I'm going to cover how to control cane toads at every life stage, and then we'll go a bit more into prevention, because our real aim is preventing cane toads, but first we have to control the ones that are there. Now, in the Tweed Shire, there's quite diverse landscapes. You know, we've got some highly dense city urban areas. We've also got some really rural areas, really large properties. So whatever your property is, you can impact the cane toad population. You've just got to be consistent, and you've got to keep at it, and you've got to enjoy it. So we'll talk a little bit about how you do each stage. So firstly, eggs, that's a manual removal. Tadpoles, tadpole trapping with our tadpole traps. Metamorph, so that's when they kind of climb out of the water and they're really tiny. And this is a really difficult stage to control. And it might seem a bit out there, but the best method we found is the wet vacuum. So I'll go a bit more into that. And then finally, adults, which is hand collection or toad busting, as we call it. So let's go over those in detail. So first, the manual removal of eggs. By far the most effective way of controlling cane toads, because you're preventing cane toads. So if you have waterways, if you on your dams, please check for eggs and listen. If you hear cane toads, if you hear male cane toads calling, which I will play that in a minute, head down to your waterway, because he is down there calling females down to the waterway to say, I am ready to mate. Females, they don't live at the waterway. They live out in the bush. They're foraging in the fields. They're looking for food. They only go down to the water body when they want to breed and keep hydrated. So they are listening for that male and his welcome call. So if you hear it, head down, make sure you check. Cane toad eggs will last for 3 days before they hatch. So you do have 3 days to find them. And you just need to manually take them out of the water. Please wear gloves, as we talked about earlier. They are toxic. So you do want to wear gloves, and then you just need to dispose of them. Before you dispose of them, we would love for you to weigh them. And we have a calculator tool on our data sheet, which I will show you the link to in a minute. But we would love for you to calculate your data and add that to our data system so that we can calculate what you're preventing, what you're removing. So next we'll talk a bit about tadpole trapping. So you can purchase a tadpole trap from Watergum or directly, and that will be delivered to your door, but you do have to pay delivery fees, unfortunately. However, we do have lots of local suppliers. We've got quite a few in the Tweed, so you can find local distributors on a map on our website, which is watergum.org. So look for your nearest store, go and purchase a trap and lures. And then you just need to wait until you have tadpoles. Don't put it in the water and expect tadpoles to arrive, but wait until you have tadpoles to use it. So tadpole traps can be an amazing way to break the breeding cycle. Again, it's that early prevention, not as early as eggs, but you are preventing tadpoles from growing up into cane toads and causing all the damage that they cause. And tadpole trapping, if you do it right, can be very, very effective, and you can catch thousands of tadpoles at a time. The way it works is it was originally discovered up in far north Queensland, and ecologists had noticed that when cane toad tadpoles hatched, they would seek out the eggs like other cane toad eggs in the same water body, and they would eat them. Obviously they're immune to the toxin. So they thought, hang on, there's a way we can replicate this. So they got involved with the University of Queensland and University of Sydney and professors Robert Capon and Richard Shine, and they worked out that it was the the way that cane toad tadpoles were finding these eggs was they could detect the scent of a pheromone. So in the coating put on by the female, yes, it contains the bufar toxin, but it also contains her pheromones. And it was this that the tadpoles were detecting in the water, and that was leading them to their food. So they were able to replicate this in a lab. By isolating that pheromone, we then apply it to like a tablet, which is our lure. We apply it to the lure, which slowly releases it. And once you pop one of these lures in a trap in the water, it releases this scent out the funnels. And the cane toad tadpoles detect that in the water, and they follow it because they think they're going to find food. Whereas frog tadpoles have no interest in it whatsoever. That doesn't mean you won't get frog tadpoles in your trap occasionally. They are inquisitive. They might swim in by accident. And the same with small fish and other bycatch. However, they are not attracted to it in the way cane toads are. So you want to set up for success when you are tadpole trapping. There's some really important things you need to do. It's not one of those things where you can skip the instructions. You have to read the instructions. This is a scientific method. You're working with live animals. There's lots of things at play. So firstly, number one, only use it if cane toad tadpoles are present, as I've already said. So you will see cane toad tadpoles. You'll see them in the water. They're quite obvious. They bask in the sun in the heat of the day. Put your tadpole trap as near to the swarm as you can. Your ideal depth is around 15 centimeters, but you've got to work with what you've got. Just be aware that if it's really deep, this can sometimes cause reduced oxygen levels in the trap, and you might get a lot of tadpoles dying in the trap. And the problem with this is they will then send out a warning. That kind of sends out a warning scent to others to stay away. So you might want, if you've got a deeper water body, you might want to try and prop your trap up, on some rocks or bricks or something to try and get that ideal water level if you can. Super important, do not fully submerge your trap. This won't work at all because then your scent dispersal will not only go out of the two funnels, but it will go out of the lure hole at the top. So it will make your trapping ineffective. Ensure that your trap is stabilized. So once it's in the water, it can't move. Because that will disrupt the scent plume. So to set your trap, what you need to do is either put a rock inside the trap or on top. And you can use other methods, but rocks handy. They're usually right there. So set your trap first before you put in your lure. Make sure your lid's on tightly, your rock is inside or ready to go on top. Hold your trap down until it fills with water. This causes lots of movement, so you don't want to put the lure in yet. You want to let the trap fill with water and then wait until everything's nice and still and settled. Your trap is stabilized with your rocks, and that's when you want to put in your lure, when the water is still. Super important, turn off any fountains as well. If you live in a rural area and there might be horses riding through the water or something, this will completely disrupt your trapping. So make sure to avoid that and any water movement. Also be aware of rain. So if you live in a tidal area, the rising tides in this water are going to affect your trapping. And yes, cane toads do breed in brackish water, so you can still get cane toads in where there's tidal surges. But you need to be aware of that because as the tides come in, it's going to move all that water. You've got to try and do it at low tide, and then that will be a shorter trapping session. Also, you want to trap on a warm, sunny day. So rain as well will affect the trapping because it moves the water. But also, the tadpoles, they eat when they're comfortable. So if you have, if you have a week of weather where you have 3 30-degree days, and then you have following that 2 25-degree days. On those 25-degree days, the cane toad tadpoles probably won't be as interested in eating. So those are cold days in relative to the ones surrounding them. So you're going to have less trapping success on those cooler days. You want to pick the warmest day that you can, and that's when you're going to increase your success. Super important as well Every time you use your trap, you have to, and once you've used it and emptied out your tadpoles, you have to thoroughly wash your trap with warm soapy water. It's super important that you remove the scent of the tadpoles that were in your trap, because the next time you put it in the water, if it stinks of cane-toed tadpoles, new cane-toed tadpoles are not going to go anywhere near it because they detect danger. They detect competition because they eat each other. So it's really important that you clean your trap thoroughly every use. Also, I want to remind you that each lure has 24 hours of water time use. So you might do a 4-hour trapping session and then take out your lure. That lure still has 20 hours left. So you want to let it dry and then you can reuse it. And an ideal trapping session is around 4 to 8 hours. If you're in super hot areas, which I mean, doesn't really happen down in the Tweed that often, but just so you have all the information, if you are in super hot areas or at the height of summer when it's really stinking hot, you might want to set your trap overnight. You might get better results then if it really is very hot, but usually in the day is fine. So now we'll go on to the wet vacuum. So this is what we use. We use a Ryobi portable, rechargeable battery-powered vacuum. And the best stage to get metamorphs is, once they've completely emerged from the water, it's very difficult. But if you see them emerging from the water, they generally hang around that bank or in the vegetation, like lilies, they'll walk on the vegetation or the vegetation at the edge. This is your best chance to get them. And you simply want to vacuum them up. Try and get as little water in as you can because it'll fill up fast. But this is by far the most effective way to get metamorphs. And you can get, 80-90% of a swarm of metamorphs using this method. And this is what we use regularly in the Tweed. And then you're able to calculate your catch as well. The same way that we do tadpoles by weighing a couple of your metamorphs and then working out, and then you weigh your whole catch as well. And because they're all the same size, you can work out how many you've got from the weight of 10. So please add your data and do remember to keep your batteries charged as well so that you're always ready to go and get metamorphs, because you have a very small window when you can get metamorphs. So you want to make sure that you catch them at the right time before they've left the water, gone into the grass, and they're uncatchable. I forgot to mention with tadpoles as well, tadpoles will remain tadpoles for a minimum of 3 weeks. So if you do have 3 weeks to use your tadpole trap, you don't need to rush and do it. Wait for that perfect day. So toe busting. So toe busting is the hand collection of adults. It's ideal for individuals or groups. So you don't need to go and join a community toe bust if you don't want to. You can just go out on your own property at night and remove cane toads. It's also really going out at night in Australia. That's all you'll see, all of the nocturnal wildlife. It's a real treat. It's a completely different place at night. Do be careful. Make sure you tread lightly and you wear appropriate footwear to keep safe and protect yourself from insects. But have fun with it. Even if you go out once a month in season, even if you go out just twice during the breeding season, you're going to have a big impact on your local area. Those cane toads that you're removing, they're territorial. They live in your garden or they live in this park, wherever you've decided to go. And if you remove those large breeding adults, then it takes a while for new ones to come in and claim that territory. So you are drastically reducing that local population instantly. But the more you do it, the better impact you're going to have. I'll use my property as an example. The first year I moved there around 5 years ago, there were cane toads absolutely everywhere. They were all huge adults. And I went round and removed them religiously, I would say at least once a week for a whole season. I removed over 1,000 during that season. And then honestly, I did very little for the next 3 years. I think I probably went out once a year, hardly got any. I've never had a breeding event. I very rarely find the large adults. It's now 5 years later, and I'm just starting to get good hauls again, but most of them are small ones. So the small ones that are migrating over from next door and starting to reclaim that territory. So if you're religious in your toe busting efforts, you're going to have a big impact. Make sure you begin at dusk or just after dusk. There's no point going in the day. And please, please log your data. So all you need, the best equipment you need is your bucket. I would strongly recommend if you use one of those big white ones, cut a hole in the top, because it means you don't have to take the lid on and off all the time. You can just pop your cane toads in as you walk through the hole. Absolutely wear gloves. You will need a torch or a head torch. Just be aware, if you wear a head torch, then you end up with insects flying around your face all the time. It's not very pleasant. So you might want a handheld torch. And utilize your torch. If you see a cane toad out ahead of you, shine the light in its eyes. It stuns the cane toad. Makes it much easier to pick up. You can also use litter pickers if you want to save your back. If you don't want to be bending over, they can be a really good tool to use. And some people also just like to have a bag over their hand as well, just as an extra layer of protection. That's fine, but please don't individually bag every cane toad. It's not necessary. You can also line your bucket with a bag, so that when you empty your bucket, you simply tie up the bag, and then you can put them in the fridge for humane euthanasia, which I'll talk about in a minute. That just makes that whole process a little bit easier. So humane euthanasia, we really want you to follow this as well. It's not cane toads' fault they're here. They were put here by us, and they're actually really great animals. You know, they're very successful at what they do. They're very smart. They're out there. They're surviving. They're fearful like anything else. They deserve to be treated with respect. Invasive species management is difficult because you are killing animals, but you can be humane to them. And you don't want to teach your kids those bad practices either. Teaching your kids it's okay to whack animals over the head and effectively torture them is not really a great lesson. So please teach them humane practices. The most humane practice currently available and recommended by the RSPCA is fridge freezer method. Or stepped hypothermia, the official name. So that involves putting your toads in the fridge for 24 hours. For large catches, you might want to put them a bit longer. And then once they have been in the fridge for this period of time, they enter a state called torpor, which is like a comatose state for amphibians. They drift off to sleep nice and peacefully. It's quite natural. It's pain-free. And at this stage, that's when you can transfer them to the freezer, and they will be euthanized. But the process of freezing cane toads directly straight away is quite a painful process. So please put them in the fridge first. So we do have a number of drop-off points that you can utilize as well. These are the two that are in the Tweed Shire at the moment. So you can head to our website to find this map, which has all the drop-off points on it. There's lots you can utilize. Most of them are in and around the Gold Coast, which is where Watergum is based. However, we do have a few wonderful volunteers hosting drop-off points in the Tweed Shire, and we would love to get more. If you're ever interested in hosting a drop-off point, please contact us and we will help get you set up. So drop-off points, they all have different opening times. They all have different rules because remember, they are run by community volunteers. So they have certain, some of them you need to phone ahead. Some of them are only open certain days. So please make sure you go to the website, click on the drop point for each drop-off point, and it will tell you the specific details of that drop-off point. And this means any toads you collect, you can take to these drop-off points and they will handle the humane euthanasia step for you if you don't want to. If you don't have a fridge freezer at home that you can utilize for cane toad control, these drop-off points are to help you. Please make it easy for the drop-off points. Make sure you bag your catches. Like I said, you can line your bucket. This makes it so much easier for the drop-off point host to just put bags in the fridge and then transfer them to the freezer. So please make it as easy as you can on them. And also remember to log your data. So I just want to cover some of the top tips of toad busting. We really want you to go out as much as possible. So first, you need to set up for success. Be cane toad ready. Have your set bucket that works for you, the one that you like. Have it by the door, ready to go, already lined, gloves on top of it. Have your euthanasia plan sorted. Make sure you know what you're going to do with your cane toads when you get them. That way, it makes it super easy. If the weather and everything has fallen into place, it's nice and hot and humid, you have the evening free, you don't have to scrabble around collecting everything. It's all just there ready to go. So as I said, cut a hole in your bucket lid just to make it so much easier if you're using that type of bucket. I actually use a little compost caddy, which I think is in a picture shortly. But I like that one because I can just open and close the lid as I go, but it's not very big. So you might need a much bigger bucket. And in that case, please cut a hole in the lid. Wait for hot, humid conditions. That's what cane toads love. It's when all the insects are out. So that's when you're going to find them most. Just after rain as well with amphibians, really great time. As I said, listen for the calls of the males and help prevent breeding events. If you hear that call, get down to your pond or dam or waterway as soon as you can to collect that male before any females come to join him. And then make sure you check the waterway either with a torch or the next day in the daylight just to see if you missed it and there's any eggs and get those out of the water. Do wear mosquito repellent when you're going out in these hot, humid conditions. Otherwise, you'll get bitten and it probably make you end your toad busting session quicker. So make sure you're comfortable. Dazzle the cane toads with the torch. Makes them a lot easier to pick up and hopefully they won't get away. Another tip as well, actually, when you do pick up a cane toad, hold it bum away from you because sometimes cane toads, they're one of their last ditch attempts at like defensive moves to try and make things drop them before they excrete their toxin is they expel water from their body. It's not wee in that sense. It's just water stored within their body for this purpose, but still, you don't want that on you. So hold them away from you as you put them in your bucket. Use a clicker to keep count. So much easier than trying to remember. You can purchase them locally, you can purchase them off the internet, but really good little tool to have. And then, yes, please log all your data. Anything you collect, anything you remove, head to the Watergun website, navigate to the cane toad section and log your data. So you can go out individual toad busting or you can join a group. And obviously there's power in numbers and it's also a great community activity that you can do. So I want to tell you a bit about how to set up your own group. Now, this can be done, I've separated it into two types. So we've got neighborhood groups. So this is a really good initiative for your neighborhood because if you're all going out and doing cane toad control, you're gonna impact each other's success. Whereas if you're like me, I'm doing cane toad control, but my neighbor isn't, then I have all the toads breed there and then migrate back over to mine. So my property is a safe haven for wildlife, but I really have to keep it in check. If I'm able to engage my neighbor to do it as well, then it doubles, that's the size of that wildlife safe haven and reduces how much cane toad busting we have to do in the future. So neighborhood groups, they can be done in person or they can even be done online. So you can engage a neighborhood through your local community group or go out and talk to people. You can get everyone, like in my neighborhood, for example, what they do is they all toad bust on their own property for an hour, and then they all go and meet at someone's house and collate their catches, see who wins, and they have a barbecue and have a bit of an evening. And whoever collects the most hosts them next month. I think that's a really good way to do it. And it's great for all the neighbors to meet new people, join every month. It's a really good way. You can also do it online, where you just create a little online competition. You can all go out and collect cane toads on your own property, on your own street, and then you can just collate online and see who managed to get the most. So even if you don't want to go out and see people, you can still work together with people. Then you also have public groups. So these are more where instead of doing your own property, you're going to a park, you're going to a public area, and you're maybe inviting more than just your neighbours or your friends. You might be inviting people you don't know, making the group public. You might advertise it on the Watergum Cane Toads group. And see if anyone can come along. And each month you might go round different parks, different areas, and just have the biggest impact that you can. So the key to forming a group is to connect with other toad busters. So please do utilize the Watergum Cane Toads group. We have lots of people from the Tweed Shire in there. You could post in there and just say, is there anyone from this area? I'd love to form a group. And you might be able to find people. You could set up a public bust and advertise it in there. But also, like I said, utilize your community groups if you'd like to set up something in the neighborhood. And then when you plan your events, if you are planning a public event, just make sure you think of everything. Make sure you tell people what equipment they need. If they're new to toad busting, make sure you're really aware of the dangers that can be involved. So you're walking around waterways at night. You might be around dangerous animals. So people just need to be really aware and careful. And if you have a lot of people, just please count everybody. Set a schedule, set some rules. So a meeting point, make everyone come back. Just keep everyone in check. Make sure everyone comes back safely. Make sure you count all your numbers and have a humane euthanasia plan sorted. So if you do want to utilize one of the drop-off points, notify them about your event in advance and make sure that you can come and drop your toads there that evening. And then please log your data and share any results and pictures, because this will encourage other people. It will spread the movement. So share those pictures in your local community group, share them in the Watergum Cane Toads group. And you can even get little competitions going. People seem to respond really well to competitions, especially kids. They really, really enjoy it. You can definitely, in a neighborhood group, or a public group, and enroll the kids to collect the cane toads safely. And they are much better at it than us adults very often. If you do want any more help setting up your own group, then please contact Tweed Shire Council, or you can contact us directly. We would love to help you. The more people regularly collecting cane toads, the better. So I've talked a lot about adding your data. If you navigate to our website below, you will find a button right at the top saying add your data and view the data. This is how it looks. It is live, so you can see everything that's uploaded. You can see how well we're doing. You can add cane toad catches at any life stage. And remember, there is assistance in calculating tadpole catches and calculating egg catches. And then metamorphs, if you do decide to go down that route, again, you do it the same way as tadpoles. You just have to count a couple and then weigh your entire catch, and you can work out how many you've caught approximately. So control at every life stage is really valuable. And when we put it all together in one data sheet, we can see everything we're achieving. And also, it means that we start to learn things. I mean, if you look on this map on the right side of the screen, you'll notice there's a few catches there that seem to be outside the recognized cane toad population zone, which is particularly interesting. There's one in New South Wales there. So either that's wrong and it needs updating, or they're spreading more. And this is how we become aware of things like that. So please contribute your data and please help us monitor, control, and prevent cane toads. So there's more to cane toad management than just going out and controlling. There's other things you can do that will help prevent cane toads. So a holistic approach is best. So a holistic approach involves targeting them at every life stage, so eggs, metamorphs, adults, and tadpoles, and also putting some measures in place to prevent them coming back once you've removed them. So one thing that you can do is you can protect your waterways. Naturally, waterways should be covered in dense vegetation, and cane toads hate this. They like easy access water. So if you successfully plant these ideal plants, lomandras, sedges, and native grasses along waterways, approximately 0.5 meter to 1 meter apart, they form a dense barrier that cane toads just don't go through. It's too difficult. They can't be bothered. They'll go somewhere else. However, frogs absolutely fine at dealing with this because it's their natural environment. So it's completely frog friendly, and it will really help to prevent cane toad breeding events in your water bodies. If you want any more assistance with this, you can contact the water gum team at any time and we will help. We will give you some advice. Another thing you can do, and this is not suitable for every waterway, but is barrier fencing. So this is ideal for large dams and ponds that maybe are not there for nature purposes. Maybe they're there for irrigation purposes or the like. However, they tend to be hotbeds for cane toad breeding. So you can put up a barrier fence. This is very successful at preventing cane toads. However, it does prevent other animals having access to the water too. So it's not going to be ideal for everybody, but shade cloth is a fantastic tool for this. And you need to dig it into the ground up to 10 centimeters because cane toads will dig to get through. And make sure you place the posts approximately 1.5 meters apart, and this will keep it nice and sturdy. But if you want to choose this method, this will help prevent breeding events from your waterway. Other things you can do is to help improve habitat for native species such as frogs, to help them, once you've removed the cane toads, they can recover and take over that habitat again. And the more they take over it, the harder it is for cane toads to get back in. You know, there's less food for cane toads, there's less space for them. So you want those native species to recover and natural biodiversity to restore itself. So first of all, prevent cane toad breeding. Be really hot on preventing those cane toad breeding events as much as you can with all the methods we've discussed. Help to increase food resources for native species. So this is getting rid of cane toads. This is planting native plants. This is making healthy water. Anything that attracts insects, attracts lizards. Like a healthy area is a thriving area. Remove invasive water plants. So these don't help our native species. You've got lots of invasive water weeds, something like South African sedge, or you've got salvinia. Salvinia is like a floating little lily plant, and it doubles itself every day. So it doesn't sound much when it's just one plant the size of your hand, but once you get half of your water body covered, the next day that will double. So things like that you want to get early you want to keep them out of your pond and keep your pond natural, keep your dam natural. If you want any help with invasive plants, please let us know. Don't introduce invasive fish to your waterway. So invasive fish, guppies, they're all quite large, and they're a really big problem for frogs because they eat frog tadpoles. They eat the tails, and this kills frog tadpoles. So if you have invasive fish, it doesn't matter how many frogs you have in your waterway. It doesn't matter how many eggs they lay. You are probably going to get hardly any baby frogs emerging from that pond. So please don't introduce invasive fish. There are some native fish that can be really helpful. So research those and introduce those, but try very hard not to get the invasive ones in there. If you don't have a water body on your property, not everyone does, especially urban areas, but you can create a frog hotel. So this can be a really good way of creating habitat for frogs. There's just certain things you can need to do to make sure you don't get mosquitoes in it or anything like that. I've got a good picture of one on the next page, so I'll talk about that a bit more then. Frog-friendly landscaping is something also you can do, and it's not just frogs. This will benefit everything But things like dry stone walls with lots of holes in it, lots of plants, places, shady areas for frogs to hide during the day. Also, keep pets under control. Don't let cats out at night, if at all, if you're happy to have a house cat. But if you do want them out, please let them out only during the day and only during your yard. Don't let them wander beyond there. They can cause massive environmental damage. And dogs as well. Please keep dogs under control around wildlife, and that will help wildlife to flourish in your space. So I picked this picture from the Yandina Community Gardens up on the sunny coast because it's just a really good example of a great frog habitat that someone's built. It's very young, but obviously it will grow. But they've got a big shady area there, so lots of with the walkway with the boards, so lots of places for frogs to hide under there. They've got lots of rocks at the water's edge that'll create crevices and holes for them to hide in. They've planted native plants around the water's edge, and these will grow and flourish and protect the water's edge, protect it from cane toads and also from birds and things that might eat the frogs. This is a really good example of some frog-friendly landscaping. And then on the right, we've got a great frog hotel. So you just need lots of tubes of different sizes. You want to start with your pot, place the tubes in and hold them steady, and then place the rocks around them. This will help keep them straight. You don't want to put the tubes in second. You need to put the tubes in first, place the rocks around them. Please try and get a native plant in there. The kind of creeping one they've got is perfect. It creates a little bit of shade for your frogs. And then you just want to fill it with water. Don't let there be any sitting water because this will help breed mosquitoes. You just want a tiny bit of water so a frog can dip themselves in. Frogs drink through their skin, so they just need a tiny bit of them in the water, and they should be able to get that from going down into the tube. The bottom of the tube should fill with water. And that will help them stay hydrated. Something you can also do is put hoods on top of the tubes, and this helps keeps the sunlight out, and lots of frogs will really like these. And you'll see that this frog hotel has also been strategically placed next to a nightlight. And this is great because it attracts the insects in and creates food for frogs. So perfect frog hotel there. So before you start your cane toad control, it's really important you're able to identify cane toads and native frogs. So I'll go over some of the key ID points here. So firstly, cane toad adults. You're looking for that parotoid gland that I've mentioned. And then the next really great identifier is the bony eyebrow ridge, which if you look at the cane toad on the right, it's the perfect letter M when you look at them head on. So these are your key points. There's also lots of secondary ID points, but you really need to be careful with these because lots of native frogs also share these features. So you can't identify a cane toad on these points alone, but you can utilize them. So we've got dry, bumpy skin. It's different for females and for males. We've got a marbled belly pattern. The horizontal goat-like eyes. That's a really good one. The toe webbing, I'd really be very careful with that. They don't have front toe webs, but so many native ground frogs have these same feet that I would honestly be very, very careful with that one. They do have an upright stance when they're sitting there and a lurching hop, but they can crouch as well, like ready to spring if they feel threatened. But generally, a lot of frogs seem much more agile. But again, not all. And color in cane toads can really vary. So color is not a reliable ID tool at all from cane toads. And individual cane toads can change their color as well, depending on their surroundings. So I'm going to play you that cane toad call that I told you to listen for. So this is a cane toad call. So you'll hear that. You probably hear that a lot. Maybe didn't know it was a cane toad. If you hear that call, get down to the water straight away because that is a male cane toad ready to breed. Here's just some different examples of cane toads and how different they can look. As you can see, different colors, different sizes, different stances. But even when they're emaciated, you'll see that one on the bottom left. You can still see those parotoid glands. Every one of them has a letter M on the front of their face. So those are your key ID points. This is another picture as well, just to show the huge variety in color of cane toads. You see we've got some really dark ones, some really light ones. Probably they were found in different places. If you're finding them in dark areas under rocks, they'll often appear quite dark. If you're finding them in a clayey dam, they'll often appear quite yellow. So these are some native frog adults, just a selection that you might see around the Tweed Shire that often are mistaken for cane toads. And there are many, many more, but I thought I would just show these three. Once you know what you're doing, they look really, really different. But it might take you a bit. The more you see, the more you're exposed to, the better you'll become at ID. So the striped marsh frog, tok frog, common name. You get this a lot. This is very common. People often think they're cane toads. They have, if you look at their feet, very similar to a cane toad, as are all these frogs. But you can see no parotoid gland, no letter M on their face. Eyes are different, stance is different. The ornate burrowing frog in the middle, this is our most common ID mistake. But you'll see the eyes are very different. They've got like a cross across their pupil. They've got big round beady eyes, no letter M, no parotoid gland, but they do have rough skin, the same as a cane toad. They do have a similar body shape, so people can get confused. Ornate burrowing frogs often have this heart shape on the back of their head as well. And then the tusked frog, this is a threatened species and unfortunately a very common ID mistake. But look at the eyes, look how different they are. Nothing like a cane toad. And again, no parotoid gland, no letter M. They do have a marbled belly though. So again, that's why you can only use that as a secondary ID feature. Cane toad metamorphs, they have the same ID features as an adult cane toad, they're just less prominent. When they're little, lots of them can have these orange spots that you can see on the left, but not all of them do, but that can be an indicator, but they often vanish after a few days. You can see their little parotoid glands starting to form, and you can see their bony eyebrow ridge forming as well over their face. This, however, is the most difficult ID phase to confirm. We've got lots of very small native frogs that look just like metamorph cane toads. So please, if you're unsure, leave it alone and send us an email at canetoads@watergum.org and ask for an ID confirmation, or post it in the Watergum Cane Toads group. Do not control any cane toad unless you are 100% sure. We'd rather have one cane toad get away than one native frog be mistakenly culled. So please check before you do any control. Here's some more pictures of cane toad metamorphs at different life stages. You can see some have those orange spots. You can see some have rough skin. When they first climb out of the water, they have quite smooth skin, although this doesn't last very long. But yeah, they all have parotoid glands. They all have those bony eyebrow ridges starting to form. And just check your ID if you are unsure. These are some small frogs who look very similar. So we've got the striped marsh frog metamorph on the bottom right, often mistaken for a cane toad at that life stage. And we've got the ornate burrowing frog on the bottom left. Again, this is a very small ornate burrowing frog and looks very, very similar to a cane toad. As do all of these. So you really, really need to be careful. And the more you see, the more IDs you get confirmed, the better you will get with your own ID skills. So cane toad tadpoles, these are quite simple to identify once you know what you're doing. The big key indicator is the clear tail frill. So cane toads have clear tail frill. Native frogs have dappled or coloured tail frill. And it's this clear tail frill that makes their tail appear quite short. So they have the central black spine of their tail, but then the frill around is clear. They do have a slightly diamond-shaped face, although this can change depending on how healthy that tadpole is. So do be careful with that one. But behaviorally, they're quite simple to identify because they bask in the sun, in the shallows, in the heat of the day. And frog tadpoles don't do this. They like shade, they like safety, they don't like the sun. Cane-toed tadpoles are jet black as well. There's some native frogs can appear jet black, but cane-toads are truly jet black. And that's if you look at them in the day. However, you can never safely ID cane-toed tadpoles at night because at night they fade to a very light brown color. They only have that jet black color in the sun. So please only try and identify cane-toed tadpoles during the day. These are some native frog tadpoles, just so you can get an idea of the difference. The striped marsh frog there at the bottom is a common ID mistake because they can appear very black. But as you see, the tail frill is not clear. And you'll see the body shape of these tadpoles is quite different to the cane toad as well. You can really see what we mean about the diamond-shaped nose with those cane toads. That's the bony eyebrow ridge starting to form. But again, remember, tadpoles stay tadpoles for a minimum of 3 weeks. So you have plenty of time to get an ID confirmation before you enact any control. So if you are unsure, please send us a photograph. Cane toad eggs, these are very easy to identify because they appear in long jelly strings like spaghetti. On day one, they're like spaghetti, and then they kind of get more spongier as they break down and start to hatch. But yeah, long jelly strings, they sink to the bottom of the water. They might get tangled around vegetation, but they're very different from frog eggs. We've got a really good video here, actually, which I will just play you, which shows how they spread in the water. You can see the central point there, and then they've been moved around. They're traipsed in, they're attached to all the vegetation. There's the cane toad that's laid them. She's been moving around, spreading the eggs, tying them around the vegetation. But they're really, really obvious once you know what you're looking for, and you just need to remove them wearing gloves. Frog eggs look very different. So they're often, most commonly, lumps of jelly or foam. Some people can get a little bit confused because if you see the one on the bottom right, which is a barred frog species, you'll see that they can be laid in lines, and people get a little bit confused. They see a line of frog eggs on a piece of grass or on a rock laid in a line, and they think they might be cane toad eggs, but they're not. You'll see that each egg, like little egg capsule, is separate, whereas cane toads are within the same jelly string. So that's how you can really confirm the difference. So we're nearly at the end of this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you feel equipped to control and prevent cane toads in the Tweed Shire at whatever the particulars of your property may be. Really encourage you to get on board and start doing cane toad control in your area, help the rest of the Tweed Shire. You're really lucky to have a very engaging council who really care about cane toads. It can be really, really difficult for councils to get funding for cane toad control because they are not considered a key species by governments. So for council areas to get cane toad funding, it can be very, very difficult. However, Tweed Shire Council is very engaged. They think it's very important. They know they've got a lot of rural areas that's suffering from cane toads and a lot of annoyed residents in the Tweed Shire. So they are putting money into cane toad control. They are funding educational initiatives like this to equip the community with the skills they need to help. And they're also performing cane toad management in council reserves. So you're really lucky to be in this area. And please do everything you can to control cane toads on your property and help the Tweed Shire as a whole. So firstly, I'm going to put you to the test and see if you can identify cane toads. So firstly, we've got this one here. Do you think it's a cane toad or do you think it's a native frog? I'm going to click to the answer now. So this is an ornate burrowing frog, that very common ID mistake that I said. So we have some tadpoles here. These were captured in a bottle and were given to us Do you think they're cane toad tadpoles or do you think they're frog tadpoles? These are frog tadpoles. I couldn't tell you what species, but they are frog tadpoles. You'll see that they are brown. They've got long tails that appear quite wide. That's because their tail frill is not clear. And you can see that on some that are kind of bent over. And these were handed to us as cane toad tadpoles. So we had to take them back and release them in the exact places that they came, because that's very important with frogs. You can't move them around. There are some troubling diseases, citrid fungus among frogs. So please don't move frogs to different locations because you can spread that fungus. So what do we think we have here? Is this a cane toad or is this a frog? This is a striped burrowing frog. So again, rough skin, different coloring though. The eyes potentially could be a little tricky, especially from this angle, but you'll see there's no bony ridge and there's no parotoid glands. So what have we got here? Is this a frog or is this a cane toad? This is the tusked frog. So this is the one I mentioned before. You can see the eyes are very different to cane toads. There is no parotoid glands. However, they do have the same feet as cane toads. There's no webbing, there's no toe pads, and they also have that rough skin. So it can be a common ID mistake. Do we have a frog or do we have a cane toad here? Well done to those who said cane toad. This is quite a emaciated cane toad, and quite unusual colouring for a cane toad, but most definitely a cane toad. You can see that eyebrow ridge starting to form there, and most obviously you can see the parotoid glands on the side of the neck. So do we have frog eggs or do we have cane toad eggs? Well done those who guessed frog eggs, individual egg sacs, a clump of jelly. And do we have cane toad tadpoles or do we have frog tadpoles? Well done those who guessed that right. You can see the clear tail frill on some of these. You can see that they're jet black and diamond shaped. These were actually some that we had in the office when we were testing out our tadpole traps. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Please remember, if you are ever unsure, please contact us for an ID. You do have time to get an ID before you perform control. I've left this example on the right of someone who was absolutely sure that they had cane toads and cane toad eggs, and it turned out that wasn't the case at all. Luckily, they posted about it. They weren't asking for advice, but they did a post. They're asking a little bit, but luckily they asked for advice, and you can see there was 47 comments at the time that we captured this. So very lucky they did. Please ask for an ID and please put it in your email title. Sometimes it takes us a few days to get to the emails, but if we say cane toad, if we see cane toad ID in the title, we will make sure that we answer that one straight away. We see them as urgent. So you can email us with canetoads@watergum.org, or you can go to the Facebook group, which is, if you just search for Watergum cane toads, you'll come up with that group. Join the group. You'll find lots of like-minded people in there. You can share ID queries and you can potentially set up your own toad busting group in the Tweed as well. So thank you for joining. Please spread the word about this webinar. It is available on demand. You just need to go to the council website, and please make use of our free downloadable resources, which you will also see on this page. And thank you for funding this, Tweed Shire Council.